Hey everybody, this is David Fine from Moths. Guys, this video is one that it might be helpful to you. Do you want to know how to make a couple grand every year just by collecting bugs? And it be legal, and it be like a good thing, helpful to society. Check this video out, guys. So I'm going to do another video on the ethics of collecting, which is a very heated topic. Go ahead and comment down below if and when you ever feel collecting insects is appropriate, moral, ethical. You know, what are the boundaries that we should and should not do? Obviously, I'm a collector, and that's kind of what I grew up doing when I was a kid, 8 years old. Collecting butterflies as moths was a hobby. It morphed as I became a young man into something more of a research project. And now for the last 22 years, I can't believe it's been that long, 22 years, I've been doing a research project, and now 98% of my collecting is all research based, and I do very little personal collecting. So I'll do a whole nother video on the ethics of collecting and maybe do's and don'ts, shoulds and shouldn'ts. Obviously some of that's objective, some of that's a little gray. But there is some black and whites, I believe. Guys, here we go. How do we make a couple grand every year just by collecting moths? The way we do that, it's a little extra work. It's a little extra, research. It's a little extra labor. But depending on what state or what country you live in, the whole idea is get connected with a museum, with a university, some kind of educational based system that has to do with insect research. And so they're all over the world, they're in every country. Insects are a big part of the fauna, and they play a huge role in the environment. They serve as food for a number of things. They have symbiotic relationships with many different animals and plants. Plus we love them. They're butterflies, they're moths, they're beetles, they're beautiful, we love them. And so they serve that purpose as well. But they're also pests. So a lot of agricultural issues come in regards to insects. So that being said, no matter where you are in the world, there's organizations present that study insects in a local area that would help better understand them, so that number one, we can protect the environment and we can save these creatures from going extinct, because there's a lot of them that are just hanging on by a thread these days. There's agriculture issues, and there's pests, there's things that come in, there's exotic things that come in and out of various countries, and it's entomologists, collectors, that are the ones that develop this information, are usually the front lines in the beginning that research for the people in the universities, the PhDs, and so on. Like this here's a perfect example. While in Big Pine Key a little while ago, I was actually had bucket light traps out, and right around Blue Hole, and this is a permitted thing. Big Pine Key is a wildlife refuge, so I have permits from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to survey the moths in that area. And in Blue Hole, near Blue Hole, I found a little tiny parallid moth, and I'd never seen it before. So I started looking at it, and I found that it's only, I think, once or twice ever been recorded in the United States before. It's more of a tropical thing, but that it eats green beans. Okay, didn't know that. So I sent the report in, and within minutes, my phone started blowing up from people from the university saying, "Where did you find that? That's a big time, like, we have to be really, really careful about that, because in Central America, it's a pest to beans." And we've been watching it because it comes really close to our borders to see if it's going to make it here. If that thing makes it here, it could become a future pest to our farms with any kind of leguminous plants, including green beans. And so they went down, the PhDs, those guys went down and started surveying further and found out that it was probably more of a fluke. There's no colony of that moth there. But my kind of like citizen scientist research cued them in to, hey, this thing made it here somehow. We don't know if it came in through tourism, like in somebody's luggage. Did it come in through cargo ships, or through one of the ports? Who knows how it got here? Hurricane blew it over, but it made it here. And so that's important information for them. So get connected with your local university, your local museum, and those institutions are looking for people like me who I'm not like a PhD. I don't have a doctorate in entomology or anything like that. I actually have a 9-to-5 job that has nothing to do with entomology. And this is just something I do on the side because I enjoy it. It's a passion of mine. I took this hobby where I used to just go out and collect things because I enjoyed it, turned it into something that was useful. And so that's kind of where I landed on that whole thing. Yes, there is very good reasons that are helpful for everybody else, not just my enjoyment of collecting, but for scientific research that you and I, laymen, can get involved in and get involved with these universities and see if they offer some kind of research associate pass, or like I live in the state of Florida, so I'm a member of the Florida State Collection of Arthropods. I'm one of their research associates. I don't get paid. It's not something that gets paid, but it is something where I have a card, and I can bring that as proof that I'm not just Joe Blow going to try and catch stuff. It's actually something that I can present to a refuge manager, a local area of interest that might require some further study on some of the butterflies and moths there, and say, hey, can I do a research project? I'm affiliated with a scientific university or a scientific entity that is doing legitimate research. And so that's the thing. Is it legitimate or is it not legitimate? And so that helps you get permits, and you could create a permit proposal for a refuge or for a landowner or a farmer, somebody's got property, and you can show them a letter, you can show them a proposal, you can show them linked with a university, we're doing research, and that usually will help you get access to areas where otherwise you wouldn't have access to. Now, in 2002, I started to do a research project down in the Florida Keys, and what I found out was, as of 2002, there had never been any kind of comprehensive study of the moths of the Florida Keys. There's been plenty done on butterflies. Tom Emmel and Mark Minow published a book, Butterflies of the Florida Keys, back in the 80s, I think it was. And it's a beautiful book. I still have it. It's a fantastic book. Research it all the time. There's like 102 butterflies that have been recorded. I think it's higher than that now, that have been recorded in the Florida Keys. It's I think it's about 109-mile stretch of islands. They're really tiny little islands on the southern tip of Florida. And it's got these beautiful tropical hardwood hammocks. It's got mangroves. It's got slash pine, Florida slash pine habitats in the lower Keys. And these areas, even though there have been guys that have gone down and done a little bit of work, it's usually like a weekend warrior kind of thing. Or a university grad student will go down for a season and for a month and do a project. But there's very little done that's comprehensive. So I applied for a permit with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. First started in Key Largo, and so I have a permit. I've got a piece of paper signed by the refuge manager that allowed me access and allowed me to do certain work. They gave me parameters like no alcohol, no firearms, don't touch any butterflies, like your specialty is moths, and I'm going to now collect them, prepare them, and come up with reports as to what I'm finding. And ultimately, those specimens that are collected in those research, endeavors are going to be deposited. And here's my university of choice, University of Florida. Up in Gainesville, they have what is known as the McGuire Center for Lepidoptera Research. So I think one of the largest in the world, places that specifically focus on Lepidoptera. And I'm depositing specimens there. Actually, last year I donated over 800 specimens to the McGuire Center of little tiny micro moths that I found in the Florida Keys. And so I'm going to get into that in a second. So you get your research associate pass, you get affiliated with a university, you get permission for a specific line of study. For me, it was, hey, I need to survey the moths here. Nobody's ever done this. It was a really valid study. We've identified between myself and Jim Trowbridge and Jim Vargo, there's a couple other guys that have been helping with the project. Between us all, there have been over 30 brand new species of moths that we found that have never been seen before. A whole bunch of others that are new to the country, that have never been seen in the United States. They might live in Cuba or the Bahamas or Central America or the Caribbean, whatever. But we've been able to discover a whole lot of things. And then there's a whole lot of other things that we've found that are just only known by 1 or 2 specimens. And so we've really been able to have a great time with the moths of the Florida Keys. We've identified 632 species of moths in the Florida Keys since 2002. I can't believe it's been 22 years, almost a quarter of a century. It's kind of crazy. But it's been fantastic, and I hope to keep going. I'm doing public education programs for the folks down in the Florida Keys. People are getting excited about the moths that live in their backyards down the Florida Keys, and I think that's pretty cool. And so we have a great relationship with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we've done a lot. So behind me, you can see a bunch of boxes. These are specimens that we've taken in the Florida Keys, and we donate every year. But there's a certain group of specimens that I'm holding on to for further research, comparative studies, as morphological studies, all kinds of things like that. And I just wanted, eventually this will all wind up in the McGuire Center. And here's the thing. If you start collecting, first thing, number one, very important, do it legally. Number 2, make sure you label your specimens. If you can't identify the species or genus, at least say, hey, here's where and when I caught it. Because if it's something new and interesting scientifically, you can show it to people who know more than you and I, and they can follow up on our work. And they can't do that unless you give data on a label of your specimen. So I'm going to show you that in a minute. But also, make sure you're donating your specimens, because here, I have this collection, and every year I got to go through and fumigate the boxes, make sure there's no pests. Hopefully I don't have a fire in my house, God forbid. But getting these things out of a private ownership and into a public facility that has fireproof, casing, and they have sprinkler systems that help protect specimens from fires. They have systems to help pests, museum pests, dermestids, little mites, things like that, from destroying your specimens. I can't tell you how depressing it is to have a rare moth that's almost never been seen before by human eyes come back a couple months later and it's being eaten by dermestid beetles. And it's an awful thing. So the responsible thing is get your specimens into a museum where science can enjoy them and use them and further the knowledge of Lepidoptera or whatever other insect species or group that you are studying. And so, so how do we make money? Dave, you took 13 minutes to get to the place why you clicked on the video. I'm giving you a trail to find out how do you make money. Now, in the state of Florida, or actually United States, when you donate things for scientific purposes to a nonprofit organization, these specimens are tax deductible. And so this past year, I donated 800 and let's see, it says, I got a little letter here, 803 pin specimens. Is the letter they gave me from the University of Florida, the McGuire Center, actually Department of Agriculture, Consumer Resources. It says, the state of Florida, Division of Plant Industry, Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services has been given in 2023 by Mr. David Fine, a research associate of the Florida State Collection of Arthropods, a private collection consisting of 803 pinned, labeled, spread specimens of Lepidoptera, all of which have been identified to species. And we'll get to that in a minute, why it's important to do a little extra work. You get a little bit more this when you do a tax write-off. And so here we go. David Fine has given to the collection to the state of Florida, given to the collection to the state of Florida without reimbursement. So they're not paying me to do this. It's just something I'm doing with my own money, with my own time, and so on. It constitutes a donation of exceptional value for Florida State Collection of Arthropods. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you guys something. All right, guys, this is a letter that they gave me. And this is something that I'm going to be giving to my accountant here, because we're going to file for our taxes pretty soon. And here's what they're showing. The specimens, the 803 specimens that I donated are evaluated to be in excess of $5,000. And so what happens is if you donate more than that, and it says that it is in excess, I need to get an appraiser to appraise the value of these specimens. So if I'm giving $20,000 worth of specimens, donating it, I got to call one of these guys to help me appraise what I'm donating, because Uncle Sam wants his taxes. So that's just the truth. Well, how do they come up with the money, the number? Guys, here's a specimen donation form that I filled out. And, on it, it gives a list of categories for the specimens. And you can see here, are they pinned? Yeah, so I counted 751 at the time. For every pinned specimen, that's with no label, they give you $1 as a value for that specimen. This one here is, let's see, Minute. Let's see. Okay, so just a pinned specimen without being mounted is worth $1. Now, if you have Lepidoptera, if you have beetles, a beetle, you don't spread the wings on a beetle. You just stick a pin through it, put a label on it, and that's the end of the deal. But with Lepidoptera, butterflies and moths, you have to actually spread the wings. It takes work. I estimate it takes about 15 minutes of work to properly spread each specimen. So that's a significant amount of time. So what they do is they give you $2 for a pinned specimen. So 751 times 2, that's $1,500, all right, that you can write off from your taxes. Now, if you have a label on them and you identify the genus and species, they give you $4 per pinned specimen. So you add this to this. Now you add over $3,000 that you add to the cost. And so I estimated here that I had almost over $6,000 worth of specimens that I donated, but I actually wound up donating more. And so this form is null. And they said, you're well over $5,000. If I wanted to try and write off more, I got to get an appraisal, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm basically taking these documents, these official documents that they sent me from the museum, and I'll give these to my accountant, and then I'm going to write that off. And here's what's going to happen after that. I will get to write that $5,000 off of my taxes. And, at the end of the year when I get my refund back, I get $1,500 or close to $2,000, depending on what I give. And that's pretty cool to get that $1,500, $2,000 in your pocket for donating moth specimens. That's pretty cool. Now, beetle guys, you kind of cheating. You don't have to spread the wings. You stick a pin through it. That's cheating. So if you really want an easy job, go do beetles. There's a lot more of them. They're everywhere. They eat everything, and museums appreciate the specimens. So, guys, I'm going to show you guys what this looks like real quick. This is actually a box of specimens that I have that are getting prepared for donation. Okay? And so, check it out. I'm going to show you guys what I got real quick. When I collect these specimens, I'm not the best at mounting micros, but, it is what it is. I'm a little bit better once you get a little larger. These are pretty cool. But you can see that each of these micro moths have two labels. They have a location and date label, okay? And then they've got an identification label. So I actually did the work. I tried to identify them at least to species, or at least to genus, and some of them to species. I've got some rare bugs in here, guys. This bug right here, that's a rare bug. That's the only one I've ever seen in the United States. It's very rare. There's some common stuff, like these Elanthius webworms. They're pretty common. But there's some really good bugs here. I bred some of these on sea grape. There's some really neat like these guys I've only found these in the lower keys. These guys too, Big Pine Key only. And, we're doing good work here, guys. We've got some really cool stuff going on. These 000's, which are a little bit larger, they're noctuids. They're a little bit more fun. Mounting a larger bug is fun. But they're actually an undescribed species from the lower Keys and probably more tropical, which is really cool. So we've got some neat bugs here, guys. Love these guys. They feed on Jamaican caper. I just bred these, reared them out, found the caterpillars. Anyway, that's it, guys. You spread the wings, you slap some labels on it. If you can identify it, do so, because you get more money, all right? I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Maybe I sparked some interest in how to get involved scientifically with a local organization and make a couple bucks while you're at it, have a little fun. And I absolutely love it. You know, I get it. It's a chance for me to get out in nature. It's a chance for me to kind of, you know, what is it? What is that collecting thing inside of the heart of a collector? Like, what is that? Like, I can tap into that, but not for a selfish reason. Not for like I'm gonna accumulate this massive collection. It's not a selfish thing. It's more of it's something where I can actually give back and use my zeal, if you would, and my willingness to go out and give back and then make a couple bucks at the end of the year. So if you like the video, guys, give me a thumbs up. Please drop a comment down below if you have any suggestions. You know, I'm still working in the Florida Keys. I'm looking to maybe expand some of my research down, like up into the Florida mainland, a little bit more, Broward County, where I live, and that would be cool. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like the video, comment down below. Till next time, get out there and enjoy your local insects and maybe make a few bucks too. Take care, guys. Bye now.